lie about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Welcome to Tales from the Field. My name is Bradley Ball, and we are back and better than ever. On Monday, Daniel Taylor was back with how to monitor your Azure SQL database, an introduction to Azure SQL Database Watcher. And next Tuesday, a quick reminder, we have our live stream with the Microsoft product group. With the Microsoft Fabric product group, we will be sharing updates and announcements from the Microsoft Fabric Community Conference. You don't want to miss this. We'll be taking your questions, and we cannot wait to hear from you. So much to do, so much to see. You don't want to miss a thing. This is your first time finding your way over to Tales from the Field. Give us a like and give us a subscribe. We drop content on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Today is Tuesday, which means it is the Azure Data Community Roundtable, and we are here to celebrate the creators within our community. You want to interact with the show, it is so easy to do so. All you have to do is make your way over to our broadcast, make a comment on the stream, and one of my amazing co-hosts will see that and they will add it to the stream. I always love that. Sorry, you guys just cracked me up with the little hand motions. My amazing co-host. I love how Kung Fu gets worked in there.
I totally go full on Matrix, like Keanu Reeves dodging bullets. I'm like, yes, let's go.
I love that bullet time. Way to go, Dan. That's definitely going to make it into the cover for this week's show. That's going to go on YouTube. I love it. I'm going to figure out how I work it in there. And of course, before we go any further, let me introduce these amazing hosts of mine. I am joined by the mountain man, Mr. Daniel Taylor, the man in the hat, Mr. Josh Luedeman, and more of a treat than Henry Cavill building a computer during the COVID lockdown. It's your friend of mine, Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri. A quick call to action. We are here for the Azure Data Community Roundtable. So what do we want you to do? We want you to join the Azure Data Community. Make sure and go check it out. Head over to the Microsoft site to be able to do that for the Azure Data Community. Find a local user group. Get involved. You never know. You will find people who are just like you, who are experiencing different problems, trouble, where you can help get some answers to your solutions. And then on top of that, you will find the wonderful community. And you may even find your next job. Who knows? Wonderful to be able to network in that local community. Well, once you do that, where do we want you to go? Well, we want you to head over to SQLSaturday.com. Get some world-class training for Microsoft employees, for Microsoft MVPs, from some of the top consultants in the field. And if you take a look, we got two big events coming up. There's a SQL Saturday coming up in Atlanta, and there's also one down in Jacksonville. And in Atlanta, myself and Mr. Daniel Taylor and Mr. Bradley Shatt will all be there from Tales from the Field. So give us a find so that way we can hand out some of those wonderful Tales from the Field laptop stickers that we have. And then also we have SQL Saturday Jacksonville coming up in the first week of May, on May the 4th, and May the 4th be with you. And what we've got is we've got an AI workshop with Mr. Buck Woody, myself, Josh Luedeman, Daniel Taylor, Neeraj Jhaveri, Andrés Padilla. You're not going to want to miss that. It is going to be a wonderful day of AI and education, but you're going to be able to get that from many different Microsoft employees, MVPs, top consultants in the field at any SQL Saturday you go to. It is just a wonderful opportunity to learn and to get trained. Where else can you go for that? Well, you can head over to Data Saturday and make sure that you're up to date on the latest events happening virtually throughout the world. So that way you could participate in those and expand your horizons, hear from some of our wonderful MVPs and professionals from around the globe. Absolutely wonderful stuff. One quick note that we want to make, if you're looking to learn, well, fabricators, join us. Join the Microsoft Fabric Learn channel, close to 3,000 members and constantly growing. We're in there. The product group is in there. There's a lot of announcements. People share their blogs, share their videos. It's a wonderful place to go to be able to learn about Microsoft Fabric, and we hope you will join us. Ooh, that was a lot. Dan, I'm going to toss it over to you, buddy. How was your weekend? What'd you do?
Yeah, so retired my 2002 Volkswagen Jetta. I actually went out. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, hold on. This is the car. This is the car that you had when I first started working with you at Publix during the first Obama administration.
Wait. You had the silver Jetta before Obama had silver hair.
I did. So I was an innovator. Yeah. And having a friend like Brad was very very good at the time. Why is that, Brad? Why was it good to have you as a friend?
Well, our first road trip that we ever went to Sequel Saturday on was Sequel Saturday Jacksonville, and we went because your car didn't have working air conditioning. And oh my God, the number of times you've driven in that poor thing during the summer, and I've just been like, Dan, I mean, driving there without air conditioning, oh, that's so rough.
Dan,
Yep.
I feel you. It's a tough year for old cars. My family, we got rid of Betty. We bought brand new 2010 Kia back in 2009, even at the beginning of the model year. And had Betty when my 14-year-old was still in a car seat that had to clip into the car. So
So I have a big question for you, Dan. You've obviously traded in the Volkswagen finally. Does the new car have air conditioning?
That was one of the features, surprisingly, that was included in the price. Yes.
Wonderful. It's important in Florida to have air conditioning.
Surprisingly, how long has it been since you bought a car, Dan?
Yeah. So the beard was blowing like this when I turned the air on because I turned it on so high. It was like
and had to throw it over his shoulder.
You know what? I got to tell you, bullet time may be out. It may be Dan going like this. That may be the image.
So the dealership took the car, and literally on the thing, the sales individual we were working with showed me the thing from the individual that reviewed the car, and is like, he's paying us to take this, right? That's what it said.
Oh, wow.
I was like, okay. So it was a great weekend, a sad weekend. That's the car we brought home. Parker, who's now 17, graduating here in a couple weeks. We brought him home from the hospital, and that it was a real memorable moment trading it in. It was a sad moment, but it's a good moment because blessed to have it, and it's something that he doesn't know in 4 years from now where he decides where he's going to be. It's going to be his car in the future. Well,
here's the thing, Dan. I mean, you have to keep in mind 2002 Jetta, right? That's a 22-year-old car. That car is old enough to go to the bar and have a drink. And you have not had working air conditioning in that car for the majority of the time that you have owned that car. Well deserved, buddy. Congratulations, and I'm glad that the car has air conditioning. Speaking of wonderful features that we can't live without, we're here for the roundtable, and I'm going to start off with a wonderful man that we can't live without. You know who I'm talking about. The one and only Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri. Neeraj, bridging Fabric Lakehouse, Delta change feeds for seamless ETL. What do we got going on?
So chain data capture is nothing new in Microsoft, right? I mean, most of the databases that you work with is always there. Delta tables now is, I mean, the way you get the data into Fabric is you put it into Delta Parquet format, and then you go from there. What chain data capture now does is it can check the changing data on the row level side of it, and now it's available in the Spark cluster of it. Why is it important? Just you would know what is changed on your rows. Definitely. This is what Brad, thanks for sharing that out. What is chain data capture? That definitely helps you out. And what are some use cases of it, which is really nicely written down there. Silver to gold layer, materialize views, transmit changes, or audit trails is something that you would note it up. The best part is how to do it. So he's showing you all the details of ETL, ELT scenarios and how to set it up in the whole walkthrough of it. So if you're interested, very nicely written blog with each and every samples of it, how to break it up, and that would help you out to create the chain data capture in Spark.
Yeah, that is a great blog by Mark Bashong. I really interesting stuff. Love the way he went through there. Speaking of something I loved, I called this one last week when I saw it because I knew I was going to love it. Data on Wheels. This is our good buddy Steve Hughes working with ALS Insights from the Ability Summit. Steve had participated in the last week of March when many of us were at FabricConf. We also had the 14th annual Ability Summit. And the very interesting thing was it focused a lot on AI. One of the things that really caught my attention was not just Steve's review of the overall conference, but talking about how in real life, one of the things he's struggling with, of course, our great friend Steve, who's a hero and a champion and an inspiration to all of us, Steve is struggling with ALS, and he was talking about how there was a session specifically on bridging the disability divide with artificial intelligence. He had some wonderful points from this, and even pointed out the accessibility bot. A lot of these sessions are available to be able to stream over on YouTube. I would recommend that people go and take a look at this. But there's a lot of wonderful use cases for AI. And Josh, I think it was you and I who were having this conversation earlier in the week. But when we talk about different trends, different things we've seen in data, we saw big data come along, and everybody was so excited about it, but nobody really understood how to use it. And then data science came along, and everybody was so excited about it, but very few understood how to use it and use it well. And then people got super excited about blockchain, and then people realized that they shouldn't be super excited about blockchain. And then we got AI that came along. And so AI feels like it's a big tech buzzword right now at this moment. But one of the things that we were discussing was the fact that unlike some of these other things, there's real application and use for AI that even when people scale back and we see the wave kind of, it rolls forward and it stretches really far. When it rolls back, we're still going to see a lot of this wave touching the beachhead, because there's items like this when it comes to making life easier for people with disabilities, being able to increase productivity and capabilities and enable them in systems that they might not have had that can show reason and logic. It's an interesting scenario, and it's an interesting world, and it's an interesting way to be able to incorporate this to even grow customer user base.
Yeah. And because we were talking about that, and the kind of wave of technology. It starts out, what I think of as the nerd phase, right? We're all excited about it. It's a really cool technology that does interesting things. And with some of the other technologies you referenced there, it's going from nerd phase to finance phase, right? Like where it becomes a business application. And to your point, that we were talking about is going from nerd to business phase has actually gone quicker, I feel like, this time around than some of those previous cycles.
Exactly. Christian Matthew Alclara, thank you for joining us, Christian. Big fan of Steve Hughes, truly an inspiration to everyone. Christian, could not agree with you more. We absolutely love Steve. Steve is a wonderful, wonderful friend, great man, and he is unbelievably inspirable. Sue and I were just talking about him. It feels like only yesterday we were at the Pragmatic Works Christmas party back in late 2015. And we were all sitting at the table, and what a great time we had. That was the first time Sue got to meet Steve in person, and it was just a wonderful time. Love Steve just endlessly, and I know many of us feel that way.
Was the Jetta there?
What's that?
Was the Jetta there?
The Jetta was there. The Jetta was there for all of it.
Broke down. The Jetta was still broke down. It was.
I don't know. The Jetta, Dan is nodding. The Jetta probably was there. Speaking of, I was going to talk about.
I was going to say, was he nodding because it was there, or nodding because it was broken down? I was being a smart aleck, saying it was broken down. But
no, the Jetta was there. It was too young to drink at that point in time, but it was getting close. It drove Dan.
Oh no. Yep. Hey, real quick, Josh, can you do your link real quick, and then we'll do mine?
Yeah,
if you don't mind, Brad.
Absolutely. So, speaking of inspirable and someone that I absolutely love to be able to hear from, of course, I'm talking about Mr. Josh Luedeman. And then building a real-time medallion architecture using Event House and Microsoft Fabric. Christian, we are here all day to be derailed and to go off course with the conversation. You are in good company, my friend. Josh, exactly. There is no derailing. Tell me what we got here.
Well, to be fair, there's plenty of derailing, and we usually do it ourselves. So we're not going to pawn it off that on anybody else. That's completely us.
I mean, we've got an article up, and we're still going on a tangent.
Right, we're still derailed. I mean, yeah. So
to be fair, let's talk about Denise and her great blog. Let's see if we can interrupt one more time. Anybody else got anything they'd like to add for Josh?
You want to jump in? No.
I was just going to wait for you to start talking again, and then I was going to cut you off.
Okay.
I mean,
Ah,
All right, there we go. All right, sorry. Let's hear about Denise's great blog, building a real-time medallion architecture using Event House in Microsoft Fabric. I've been super interested in Event House. I've been reading up on it since it was announced at Microsoft Fabric and community conference, and we got some of the great information from it in the March monthly update. So, Josh, take us through this. What do we got here?
so I actually found the article last night while I was doing some work. I'm working on building a demo currently with Fabric and real time analytics, integrating um, with my home automation system called Home Automation. It's an open source system, and integrating the events, capturing them in through real time analytics. So I started looking at this article because for me, I wanted to look at how, it's not necessarily the type of data I'm capturing that's going to be business aligned to a business, but that type of data flow and things like that is an interesting scenario for different companies so that I could use it as a demo. So I wanted to look at this and understand, okay, I know of medallion architecture. I think of it more with not necessarily real-time data in this case, but I wanted to look at how I could use Event House, the new feature here instead, and integrate that into my solution. So Denise has a great article here where she goes through building it out using data pipelines for copying operational data, which I'm looking to build into my solution as well. Streaming events through Event House DB using Event Stream, data transformations in Event House, and even real-time analytics dashboards. So with this whole thing, she goes through, what is, at a high level, the medallion architecture, doesn't spend, all day on it, which is good. The Event House, the key features with it, since it's a new product, that was good to know for me, so that I could dive in a little bit deeper and understand some more about it. And then even goes a little bit deeper into the specific data layers and what she's putting in them, and how she's naming them, some policies that she puts in place around update policies in the Event House DB, which gave me a chance to go into that and understand that a little bit more. Some materialized views, which I'm going to end up using myself. So for me, it was a great article that went through, really a similar scenario to what I'm looking to do. The nice thing is she takes all the code. It's all out there on GitHub. The link's at the beginning of the article, along with the real-time analytics tutorial, which I'm all too familiar with.
All too familiar. Well, speaking of something that we're all too familiar with, we're all too familiar at this point in time with the fact that Dan's car now has air conditioning, but didn't used to. And speaking of the man that I've got coming up next, I've got Mr. Daniel Taylor sitting there cool and crisp and looking collected now. And you've got hands-on with Copilot for Azure SQL Database by our good buddy, Joey D'Antoni. Dan, tell me what we've got here.
So yeah, Joey D'Antoni, and you actually shared the article last week or the video from our good friend Joe Sack. But Joey sat down with Joe at SQL Bits and discussed the new hands-on with Copilot for Azure SQL Database. And Joey goes through a couple pieces here within the article. Basically, the summary of the article goes like this. He talks about Copilot for Azure SQL Database, which is a new service we've introduced. It works with Azure SQL DB as well as Postgres DB, right? And it has T-SQL assistance in there, and that's great. So it can help you learn T-SQL by asking certain questions like, hey, how can I do a cross join, or how can I do an inner join? And Joey walks through and shows some examples of that in here. And then the great part that I really enjoyed is the performance insights. So you can ask Azure SQL DB, what are the performance issues I'm experiencing right now within my database? And that's great because we have a lot of small and even medium business customers that don't have professional DBAs with them. And if they can't get a hold of us, they can use Copilot to ask these questions to help solve some of their issues. And then, Joey talks about the future developments of Copilot with Azure SQL DB and where you would like to go. It's a great article that he wrote here in Redmond Magazine, and it's definitely worth a read.
Excellent. Love it. Great stuff. We've got a good question from Christian. Which scenarios would you use data pipelines? GenFlow to data. Sorry, I get what you're saying there. We said GenFlow to, but it's data flows Gen 2 and then notebooks. Christian, great question. So before I sound off on this, does anybody else want to sound off on this? Okay. Yeah. So Christian, where I would, and I'm going to throw the question back up so that way we've got it on the screen. So let's talk about different scenarios. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is it's going to depend on the skill set that you have. If people are very familiar with Power BI, with loading data in the editor, I would look at Dataflow Gen 2 because it gives you a very Power Query-esque feel to being able to bring in data and data sources and transform them. But you may have some limitations based off your data sources. For example, if you wanted to ingest a bunch of flat files that were not in Azure, that were currently on-prem, we currently don't have a data source that would allow us to be able to connect directly to that and bring that in. To bring those files in, you would need to use a data pipeline. Now, once you ingest those, keep in mind from a data pipeline is kind of like an orchestrator. I can call a notebook. I could call a data flow Gen 2 from a data pipeline. So I could get data. I could copy it into Azure. I could do some transformations from it using a data flow Gen 2. And then I could theoretically use a notebook to be able to enrich that data. I could utilize a data science model. I could add additional attributes to a data set, and then I could save that data out to a data lake. So when I look at notebooks, I'm thinking, do I have the skill set or does my team have the skill set to be able to use Python, Scala, R to be able to do either ETL transformations within the notebook, loading from data from the notebook from different sources, or are we using some type of enrichment and data science within the notebooks to be able to expand the data that we've got? So for pipelines, think of that again as your overall orchestrator. I'm going to pick up data, I'm going to move it from one location to another. For your data flow Gen 2, that's going to be very transformative for data, but it needs to either be in Azure or it could be on an on-prem SQL server if we can access it there. But I can pick that up, I combine it, I can merge it. It's that Power Query-esque experience. And then for my notebooks, those are going to be using PySpark or a different coding language for that, typically used either for ETL or data science, but I can call those data flow Gen 2 and those notebooks within a pipeline. I hope that helps out. If there's any more questions, though, please keep hitting us up. We love it and we love the chat. Speaking of something that I love, well, I love it whenever I get us handed over to this man. You know who I'm talking about, Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri, introducing job queuing for notebooks in Microsoft Fabric. Neeraj, you had me at Neeraj. What do we got going on here?
So in the current system, we did not have the queuing process in there. So what was happening was when you exceed the capacity limit, it would constantly, the user would have to go and re-enable the job, and if it need to run it out. So that is time consuming and would be costing on it. So job queuing was, I mean, that was one of the feedback that we got from the customers, and that was now introduced as job queuing in notebooks. What it does is when you trigger a job and if the capacity is run out of it, it's automatically puts it up into a queue, and then when the capacity is available, it will go and run it out and then archive it that particular job. So that's how the job queuing would work. Definitely different types of queues that are mentioned in there that would have the job capacities to run these queues in there, but that is something that would help you save some money on it.
Yeah, and this queue limit is very important to understand that it is SKU dependent, and so the jobs that we can queue, incredibly important, but it's one of those things that we need to make sure that we understand what our SKU is, what we get, because there's other things that we found about this recently, right? Your SKU size is the number of terabytes of free storage that you get, for example, for database mirroring.
Yep.
And so if I have an Azure SQL database and I have an F64, I'm pretty safe because the Azure SQL database has a 4 terabyte limit. Now, if we go to hyperscale could go up to 100 terabytes. So that means I could end up paying for some storage. And now we're looking at queue limitations based off our SKU size, which makes sense because it's the level of compute we've got underneath the covers. But just like a query engine queuing for SQL Server, it's really important to be able to allow for that multiple concurrency processes. There's a lot of work we're doing for that, and that's really key to keep in mind to be able to make sure that we get our Spark environments as tuned as possible. There's a lot of great announcements that were made at FabricCon, and that's why up next, what have I got? Well, I've got the FabricCon keynote. Now, since this has been launched on the Microsoft Fabric channel, it's been viewed 8.7 thousand times. And I would imagine many people have seen this. It's a little over 2 hours long, but at the same time, it gives you that conference experience. If you're looking for all of those updates and you want to make sure you know everything that's actually going on, well, this is the link you need. And by the way, all the links are already in the description of our video. So if you go to the description, you're looking for one of these links, you take a look, you will find those right away. So our links are there, but I thought, why not share the keynote? And we have so many people who are involved in this keynote. Arun, Adam and Patrick, Wangud, Amir, Shireen, Elizabeth, Justinia, David, Suresh, Zoe, and then Patrick, another Patrick, closed off the show talking about Copilot and warehousing. There were so many people involved in this. This was an amazing effort, but it also gave us a couple really cool things because we got GA announcements, we got public preview announcements, and then we also got private preview and sneak peek announcements. And so some of these sneak peeks are things that aren't available yet that we're still working on inside of Microsoft, but we're giving you a peek of what it is that we're working with. So really, really cool stuff. And you definitely want to check this out if you have not seen this. The unified data platform, era of AI, the keynote for Microsoft FabricCon, wonderful stuff. And you want to make sure that you check that out. Josh said, I was wondering if Brad, the disembodied head, was going to be hosting the rest of the show. Glad to see you come back. Yeah, sorry, I had a brief camera issue. The camera issue was I needed to sneeze. And I didn't think anybody needed to see that.
So, no more turning off the camera for sneezing. Mute, yes, because I want to see something like
there we go. Maybe that will be my title card picture. Hold on, I'll be like just making a terrible face.
The ugly crying face. I want that. That's what I show up for on a weekly basis.
Well, and you know me, like I can't sneeze quietly. I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's the broken nose that I have.
That's why I'm only taking away the shut off the camera. Please mute. Just don't shut off the camera.
I was gonna say when I sneeze, the neighbors come over and go, "Are you okay?" They're used to it now, but when we first moved here, I mean, people at other tables believe I'm having a seizure of some sort when I sneeze and when we're out at a restaurant. It's hysterical to me because you all are so used to it that you're just still having the conversation. I sneeze, the table shakes, birds outside fly off of trees, and you're just
the restaurant turns around and goes, "Oh my God, what was that?" And we're all like, "What?"
Well, speaking of oh my God moments, when I saw this next link, I thought, oh my God, what an amazing and brilliant person who's going to present this next blog. And of course, you know who I'm talking about, Mr. Daniel Taylor. Automate Delta table maintenance in Microsoft Fabric Warehouse. Dan, what have we got here?
So this is another great article by Koen Verbeek. And Koen goes through and gives us a brief overview of Fabric, which is always good to do, right? Then talks about how it's a SaaS service. And then he goes into talk about Delta table maintenance. Woo! That was a tongue twister. And it goes through that our Delta tables require maintenance in Microsoft Fabric. But since this is a SaaS service, we do this automatically for you. Koen goes through, sets up the example for us so we can see how these two pieces work that Koen goes through. First, he talks about the data compaction process. Woo, these are all tongue twisters for me today.
I was going to say, maybe you should do this in the voice of Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, this is data compaction process. No. Yeah, it would work, but that would, So the data compaction process, Koen walks through the process of that, shows us examples, how we can look at examples on how that works, and then talks about the deletion vector process, which I actually learned a little bit about, and never afraid to admit I learned something about the soft deletes that take place within this deletion vector and how we handle the Delta tables maintenance. I just need to give up for the day, y'all. The Delta tables maintenance for those deletion vector techniques. definitely an interesting read from Kuhn, giving us a look behind the curtain of how this maintenance of our data Delta tables works. Good stuff.
Because and here's the thing to remember, right? Like when we look at delta tables, Dan says delta tables down by the I don't know. I don't
Delta
have anything
tables
that,
down by the seashore.
Is it the
Yeah.
effect of Jetta, man? What's going on?
Well,
I
maybe
was just gonna say
yes.
Delta tables in a van down by the river. No, but
Yeah.
that was me. I don't know.
Dan's delta tables down by the river. Oh, I love it. I was gonna say, watch out, kids! If you don't graduate high school, you'll end up as a delta table in a van down by the
river. Yeah, no, sorry, y'all. Tongue twisters today. At least I didn't say anything inappropriate in my tongue twisters. So there's always that.
There's that. There is.
Thank you, Kuhn, for the great article.
Yeah, so Christian adds great topics, guys, that we're covering. Surely I'll recommend this to other friends. I hope you'll cover DevOps, a Fabric, and data governance side as well. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Christian, we've been covering a lot of that in different weekly broadcasts that we've had of the Azure Data Community Roundtable. There's some great videos out there. Our good friend, Aaron Clark, and also Kevin Chant.
Kevin Chant. Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say they have wonderful DevOps coverage within their blogs. We featured them anytime. I am sure we're going to be featuring them more as we see more of these DevOps items coming out as well. And we've definitely done some stuff on the data governance side, but you're going to see as that story continues to unfold within Microsoft Fabric, we will be doing more and more of that. Speaking of always wanting more, right? I once this man presents, you know what I want. I want a little more of his stuff in my life. And I'm talking about the man in the hat himself, Mr. Josh Luedeman. Microsoft Defender for Cloud adds full coverage for Azure open source relational databases. Josh, give it to me, buddy.
Yeah, so Defender has, again, like it's saying there, added the full coverage, but it's expanded the feature set available in Defender for Cloud specifically for the open source relational databases, MySQL and Postgres flexible server. It's GA as of today, having, adding in, the expansion to anomalous database access, query patterns, the suspicious database activities, and brute force attack spaces. This is a great article from our friend Catalin, who the gentleman here with me on the screen today. Remember Catalin from working with our feedback group within Azure Engineering, helping to condense feedback to engineering teams. Catalin, great, thank you for this article. But goes through again with screenshots how to apply the different Defender rules and alerting compatibility and all those pieces, and then goes through with the next steps on how to enable it via tutorial, and also a link to the root documentation for Defender for open source relational databases. Dan, it's contagious. I couldn't say open source. I blame you because it is not open source. Continue. Thank you, Dan.
I was going to say we're all telling tongue twisters by the end of the tale.
I feel like this episode is more punchy than normal, which is saying something, but I'm just having fun. So
for me, I've only made it through 3/4 of my first cup of coffee on the day, and it's been a long morning. So it's just tea. Yeah, I need to switch over to tea after this, but Dan's on 3 cups. Maybe that's what's Dan's got the jitters, and he's got the, I don't know, the jitters, the tongue tightness. You know what? I'm just going to pass, and I'm going to pass to one of the all-time greats. And you know who I'm talking about, Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri. And we've got the public preview of OneLake shortcuts to S3 compatible data sources. Neeraj, I'm glad you're covering this. When I was at SQL Bits and FabricConf, I was talking with Bob Ward. This is one of the things that Bob Ward was most excited about, to see that S3 storage shortcuts, because many people hear S3, they think AWS. And of course, that's what the name of their storage is, but it's an open source protocol. Dell uses this very heavily, and it's used for many on-prem servers. It's used in Kubernetes clusters. It's used throughout the board just to be able to utilize S3 storage as a protocol method. So this means that you can create shortcuts from your S3 compatible storage on-prem into Microsoft Fabric today, which is huge and amazing. I'm sorry to steal your thunder, but Neeraj,
Nope,
please take it away.
that's exactly the way you said it, right? I mean, definitely a big announcement for the shortcuts for S3 compatible. I mean, if you look at the diagram, now we have Azure storage. Yes, that was first. Then S3, Amazon AWS was there. For their Google storage is now in there, and now the Amazon S3 compatible is shortcut available for that. Definitely, I mean, same way as you're doing. Go to, I mean, Matthew goes into the thing showing how to create a shortcut. But if you go to your Lakehouse, you can just click on it, right click, and just create shortcut, and you'll see all these 4 available in your environment, and you can just start bringing in your data. All you need to pass your credentials, and it will start bringing your data into there. So definitely, the data does not move; only the metadata moves. That's the beauty of shortcuts.
Absolutely. It's that virtual pointer to be able to grab that data, but then you've got your Fabric workspace able to access that data. You can pull it in via a notebook, and then you could land it in OneLake, and we can begin working with that data right away, which is amazing stuff if you think about how quickly that condenses that motion. And speaking of great, and Mr. Bob Ward, we know Bob Ward is great. Well, one of the great things that Mr. Bob Ward did was he did the keynote with Mr. Buck Woody. And hold on a second, I've got to get there. There was another list for this. Of course, Patrick and Adam were there. Mayazba Zaid, Yakasha Kesselman, Buck Woody, Aaron Stellato, and this is the SQL Bits keynote. So this is also live. If you have not seen this, one of the things that you want to do is you want to go check this out, because we had announcements at SQL Bits back in March where we announced the next generation for Azure SQL Managed Instance, Managed Instance Gen Next. And one of the things Bob was just showing was the level of performance improvement that you had out of the box for SQL MI Gen Next versus SQL MI traditional. There were a whole lot of different things covered, including at the end, a demo of the Copilot system that Dan was just talking about between Buck and Aaron Stellato, walking through what you could actually get and what you could fix and how you could use Copilot. I don't know. Maybe Copilot is how we're going to apply.
Hashtag blame Dan.
Well, I was going to say we got Copilot and the SDKs with generational AI and big GPUs, because that's what we need is big GPUs. Anyway, so Buck Woody and Aaron Stellato are showing how you can use the Copilot system, how to access it. One of the neat things they did is Aaron actually showed how she could use the Copilot system in the Azure portal to access her query data stored data, to be able to show perfmon data. And she literally started by saying, "Why is my database slow?" and took it from there. And it was just really interesting to be able to see how she could dig into this. Great stuff. Make sure and check out those keynotes, because of course there were a huge amount of announcements there. And speaking of huge, well, whenever I think of it, I think of this next man. And of course, you know who I'm talking about, Mr. Daniel Taylor. Direct Lake versus import mode in Power BI. It's very important for people to understand this. Understanding the difference is huge. Dan, what have we got here?
So Marco Russo provides us with this article, Direct Lake versus import mode in Power BI, goes through the differences between Direct Lake versus import mode, talks about the performance considerations, how queries are generally faster than Direct Lake, is not a replacement in import mode, different performance considerations that you want to consider when using Direct Lake versus import mode, modeling limitations. Marco goes through some modeling limitations within the article here, and then talks about the different memory consumption between both import and direct mode. They both consume memory, but they consume it in a different way. So where it is a good fit for some rather large models, Direct Lake import mode may still be your best bet for some of your Power BI reports. So it's just that architecture, right? And he wanted to provide, after he went to SQL Bits, this guidance so that folks, when they design their architecture around this, they do it correctly. Excellent article here.
Excellent. Always great stuff coming from Marco. And speaking of, when I looked at this blog, I saw who had written it. I saw who had recommended it. And it's a surefire can't miss. So up next, last but certainly not least, we have the man in the hat, Mr. Josh Luedeman, with the amazing Taryn Pratt announcing GA of enabling patching for SQL Server on Azure VM with Azure Update Manager. Josh, so we know Taryn so well, her being a former teammate of ours. We know the wonderful work she's doing on the product group to make sure that VMs and patching and all of this works with SQL Server. What a great production DBA that she was, and how she's brought that and leveraged that experience to make sure that our customers have solid end-to-end solutions. Break this down for me, Josh. What do we got?
So when I pull together my articles on a weekly basis, I try to pull from the week before. It's kind of like a mental rule I have. Let's talk about what we missed last week and things like that. The problem is when I was pulling together articles, she dropped this article while I was pulling stuff together last night.
Got to break the rules for Taryn.
Oh yeah, she threw out my rule book, like threw it up, figured out how to tear the phone book in half, sort of thing, the whole thing. And so the nice thing about this, and why I wanted to feature this article, is I've had a few conversations as Taryn has been, kind of bringing this together for Azure SQL on VMs. And there's a lot of passion behind this. So I wanted to make sure that this got featured as quick as possible, just to really highlight the effort that her and the rest of the team have put into getting this into the product. So Azure Update Manager, for those who are aware, are a service that helps to apply updates to your virtual machines. What has happened now is through the work of the SQL team, it's now expanded out to include SQL Server updating as well. So this article goes through how you can use automated, or move from automated patching to Azure Update Manager to manage your updates. She goes through some of the considerations, the different types of things that it does, including one-time updates, update management at scale, schedules, periodic assessments. But the most important caveat is at the end. At this point, patching SQL Server on Azure VMs through Update Manager or automated patching via the SQLize extension is not aware of SQL servers being a part of always on availability groups. So be very careful with that. At the end of the article, she goes, get additional links, around patching configuration, config settings, Update Manager as a whole. Great article, great feature, hands down. Great work, Taryn and team.
Absolutely great. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
No, real quick. I want to give Taryn a lot of credit too. Wonderful. Miss working with her quite frequently, right? But TarynBuilds.com, all of us have her cut. I just want to put some props out there. She's also this wonderful artist, folks. All of us have different things we do away from the fields. TarynBuilds.com. All of us have her cutting boards. Some of us have cut bowls. Go out there, check out her artwork as well. Not only is she this incredibly smart person, as an artist, she's incredibly talented as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's
absolutely.
Great stuff.
Absolutely. One of my cutting boards from her is one of my prized possessions. As a matter of fact, I was watching and the coasters given to us by one of my favorite former managers ever as a Christmas present. It was from Taryn. How can it get any better than that? Wonderful stuff. Well, we're at the end of the show, so we're going to do a quick wrap up. There's a couple things I want to make sure that you keep in mind. The call for speakers for Future Data Driven is open. So if you're a speaker, you're a part of the community, you're looking to participate, go out to Future Data Driven, go to their website, look for the call of the speaker, hop in, sessionize. I know many Microsoft speakers who are submitting. We are all submitting to give talks for Future Data Driven. That conference is free. It is online, and it is in September. I just presented for their user group last week, and what a wonderful user group experience. A lot of great people online and a lot of wonderful people that they've got queued up. So go take a look when you're looking for online user groups. Go take a look at Future Data Driven and maybe join their user group. Visual Studio Live 360, the call for speakers has closed. We've got our fingers crossed, and hopefully we're going to be there. But I've got a very special surprise treat that I'm cooking up with Tom LaRock. And it's not just bacon popcorn, but we are going to be baking up some bacon popcorn. I don't know if you've heard of this. You cook bacon, and then you pop the popcorn in the bacon oil, and then you put brown sugar on the popcorn, and you crumble up the bacon and put it on top of the popcorn, and then you eat it.
Brown sugar.
Oh, it's magic. It's magic. Anyway, better then brown sugar, bacon, popcorn is going to be the stuff that we've got coming up. We're going to start launching some of these things in July, so stay tuned. We're going to have some special live streams coming up for Live 360 and some of the amazing community things that we have planned this year for the first time ever. Keep in mind, Sequel Saturday Atlanta, Sequel Saturday Jacksonville. Atlanta is this week, this Saturday. So if you're in the Atlanta area, you want to register before they go on a wait list. I think there's still a little bit of room and you want to get in there. Wonderful, wonderful pre-cons are happening on Friday. Mr. Bob Ward is coming to town. I believe Anna Hoffman is presenting with Bob. And then on top of that, we got Patrick LeBlanc and Jason Heiselman, I believe, who's coming and assisting Patrick. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. And then Dan and I will be there on Saturday. And then Jacksonville, right? May the 4th. On May the 3rd, the day before, we got our AI pre-con with myself, Buck Woody, Josh Luedeman, Daniel Taylor, Neeraj Jhaveri, Andrés Padilla. You're not going to want to miss that. It's going to be a great day of learning of AI. And then we've got a wonderful Sequel Saturday following that. And gentlemen, anything else that you wanted to cover?
We're waiting to hear back from Past Summit. We're waiting to hear back from Sequel Saturday, South Florida. Lots coming up, folks, where you can meet Tales from the Folks members as well as attend great events.
Folks.
Yeah, Tales from the Folks fields. That's okay. Remember your co-prior and your other things. Anyway,
Next week is roundtable, 9:30. So we're going to start at 9:30 next week, right?
Absolutely. Next week, it's special. We're doing a broadcast with the Microsoft Fabric Product Group for the month of March. Myself and Bradley Schatt will be there. We're going to have some members from the product group. We're going to be launching that schedule coming up pretty soon. You don't want to miss a thing that week. It's going to be a great time. All right. If that's everything, for Josh Luedeman, Daniel Taylor, and Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri, thank you so much for joining us. As always, take care and be good to one another. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Grow hard about what you want to be. Step 4. Everybody just do your thing.
Wake up.